Welcome to the February 11th edition of the Joe and Joe Weather Show, or as it is going to be more commonly known going forward, the Winter is Over show for the I-95 corridor.
Are you going to throw in the white towel?
You know what, Joe? After looking at everything today, and my Patreon members got a Weather in 10 video, and I got really in depth into the long range. And it's what you and I discussed yesterday, and we'll say it again. The pattern is what it is. It is February 11th. Now, I want I want everybody just kind of give a little perspective here. 2 years ago, okay, was it 2 years ago, Joe? Going into the four nor'easters that we had in March, right?
Right, right.
We also had that February blizzard early in the month, but that was in a pattern where it was very warm, except for whenever we had any opportunities for it to snow. And then we would get some cold air, it would snow, and then it would warm up again. Okay. So, as you should recall, you and I both discussed what was going on upstairs in the upper atmosphere, and it became fairly clear that that was going to trigger a change in the pattern, and also a development of a major block in the North Atlantic. And I remember taking heat for that from a lot of folks during the last 2 weeks of February, and lo and behold, that wound up happening. Okay, which is fine. It's you make a forecast. Sometimes you take a shot, and it works. And I'm usually not one to take shots every 5 minutes. I kind of pick my spots. And I have to tell you, from looking from what we've been seeing for the last couple of days, and every run is pretty much the same thing. There's nothing here that is new. Just given where we are in the calendar, it's February 11th. The long range carries us out 2 weeks. There's nothing in those 2 weeks that even points even remotely to the possibility that this long this large scale broad pattern over the northern hemisphere is going to change. So at least from the standpoint of snow, I'm thinking, believe it or not, at least for the I-95 corridor anyway, down near the coast where you are, relatively speaking, so south of Route 84, and maybe east of Route 81 in Pennsylvania, I think we may be done. I think that this might be like that winter in 97, 98, where you get that little system that comes on the day after the first day of spring and drops 5 inches of snow in a 40-mile radius. And that's it.
It may very well be, Joe, that 1998, that winter you just alluded to, here in the month of February at Central Park, zero, the only time that we never ever had
A flake.
no, not even a flake at Central Park in the 150 plus years of records. And there have been four other Februaries: the February of 2002, February of 1981, February of 1971, and February of 1938, where we had just a trace of snow. Now, we've had a trace of snow so far at Central Park this February, and it's looking more and more with each passing day that we may very well see no more than a trace of snow this month, making it the 5th February with just a trace of snow on the weather records at Central Park.
And by the way, when I'm talking about snow, I'll put a qualifier in here. Could something come along that somehow whitens the ground and whitens the ground or something along those lines? Sure, that could happen. Could you wind up with something that produces maybe a few tenths or maybe a half an inch? Sure, that could happen. But as far as what I'm referring to is kind of a widespread accumulating snow that covers a vast area where you see, some areas get at least an inch and maybe some areas get more than that. That's what I'm referring to here. And I'm believe me, if I could find something to hang my hope on, or to hang a hope on, for snow lovers, I will speak for them here. I'd be the first one to jump out and say, well, maybe if we get this to happen or that to happen. I can't find anything zero, um, to give me even a slight bit of encouragement.
And by the way, the last, excuse me, the last 10 Februaries at Central Park, if you average all of the snow accumulations up, the last 10 Februaries have come out to be 11.8, just 2/10 of an inch shy of a foot of snow. And I believe there was one particular February where we had something like 20 or 25 inches out of that. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but that just to show you in comparison what we're seeing right now in this month of February. They're hardly anything. Now tomorrow night, if history is anything, this setup that we're going to see tomorrow night will be very similar to the first two waves that passed on by during the last few days, in which case I will see snow, I will see my deck get whitened and may even get maybe like a few millimeters of an inch, a few
Right.
millimeters or a quarter of an inch. And then very quickly, within a few hours, the rains come and boom, it's all gone the following morning. And that's probably what we're going to see again tomorrow night.
Okay, so here let's do a Jeopardy, a Scott Briller Jeopardy question right off the bat. Uh, in the I-95, along I-95, all right,
Right.
from Caribou to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, the city that has the well, I'm sorry, from um, let's do from Caribou, Maine to Norfolk, Virginia, uh, not including Norfolk, Virginia. All right.
Okay.
The city that the major city that has the least amount of snowfall this winter.
Well, we've talked about that, haven't we? Isn't it Philadelphia? We said we were in a snow hole.
It is Philadelphia at I think
One third.
point one or point one or point three, something like that.
I thought it
But
was one third, 1.3, but
right, and the city, the one city that's ahead of them, I mean, among a few other ones that are south of Philadelphia, is Richmond, Virginia, which is a little unusual. They even got an inch of snow out of this winter.
wow.
I mean, it's crazy. Also, now here's another thing, and this will,
And Atlanta.
well, Atlanta got, I think, a trace or something, or in at the airport. But north and west of Atlanta, now my daughter's up in Marietta, which is actually just outside on the northern part of Atlanta, on the just outside the city limits. So it would be the equivalent of like being in White Plains to
Yeah.
New York City. She had between 2 and 3 inches there.
Wow.
And you go up in in northern and northeast Georgia as you get up into the Smokies. There was a band of 6 to 8 inches that fell from near Blue Ridge, Georgia, all the way to Blairsville. Um, so yeah, those places. I mean, they even had a winter storm warning up, which we haven't had. Now here's another one. The lowest temperature of the winter so far in New York City for the winter is
Did we 2023 or 24 or thereabouts? And that,
no, the lowest was
oh,
19.
you know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of high temperatures, the
Oh, the
lowest.
lowest high. No, no, no. This is the
Yeah.
lowest low. So 19 in on December 16th. That's going to be taken out Saturday. That probably will be taken out Saturday morning
Oh, no question.
with the cold air that's coming down. This will be the coldest for the Northeast. This is going to be the coldest night of the month, the coldest night of the winter, and it's a 2 day shot of cold air that'll be gone by Sunday. How pathetic is that?
Yeah, it is pretty pathetic.
It is.
I mean, I've had, and of course, you and I both can remember in our mindsets going all the way back many a February day. Well, not many, but not a few February days where we've had high temperatures of around 10 and low temperatures of at or just below zero. And here we are, we're talking about 19 as the lowest temperature so far. And yeah, I'm not sure. I know definitely where I am. I'm going to be single digits
Oh yeah,
on
you're no, you
Saturday
will
morning.
be.
Whether or not New York City can, let's say, get down to 10 or maybe even get below 10,
No, but
but
they should at least be able to do 15. I would think they should be able to do 15. I'm thinking for me it'll be like 12, 13. Maybe if I get lucky, it gets a little bit lower than that. But you head up, not too. You go north
West
of you, it's
Virginia
going to
would be
be.
like 10 below,
Well, I mean, if you go north of Albany and up into interior New England, where there's going to be a snow cover on there, they're looking at double digits below zero Saturday morning.
probably. Yeah.
disgusting.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to bring up the watches and warnings map because there are blizzard warnings up tonight, believe it or not, for a portion of the northern plains, eastern North and South Dakota, and western Minnesota. Okay. Now, before everybody gets all wrapped up into the idea that we're talking about feet of snow up there, we're actually talking about a coating to a couple of inches of actual snowfall. This is really more about wind and visibility, which is what a blizzard really means. And it's got nothing. It doesn't have anything to do with. It doesn't even have to be heavy snow actually falling. It's all about visibility, and they're going to be dealing with winds and blowing snow more than anything else.
Right. A ground
Sadly,
blizzard.
what's that?
A ground blizzard.
Yes, correct. Then we have this narrow strip of winter weather advisories that goes from North Texas across western Oklahoma, southeast Kansas, cuts the northern part of half of Missouri, central and into parts of northern Illinois to about Chicago, northern Indiana, northernmost Ohio, and now we're starting to see advisories going up for western and north central New York, and eventually we'll see that extended out into central and northern New England. But it's like this really narrow strip, and you've got those winter storm warnings in northwest Texas and in New Mexico. And as we've said a couple of times here, when it's snowing down in New Mexico and in Arizona, and you're seeing, snow that is uh, falling even in the mountains of Mexico, that is no good for the east because that means that there's a deep trough in the western United States and bringing cold air southward and pretty far southward, and a ridge in the east. And of course, the other big story tonight is, long stretch of flash flood watches that are up from northeast Texas across the central Gulf states, and then northeastward up into Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and southern Ohio. So that's from all the heavy rain that they've been getting with all these waves moving along. It's just crazy. It's just unrelenting.
Southern half of Ohio wet, northern half of Ohio white.
And a stripe in the middle, by the way, that has no warnings on either side. How did they manage that?
That's
But
the demilitarized zone.
but when you look at the loop, if you watch carefully on the satellite loop, it really, if you didn't know anything other than the loop, it just follow along, just follow the flow, and just follow the clouds, and you can see, where your jet stream is and how it's functioning. And when your northern jet, which I'm going to draw in now, if you look at the top of the frame, you can see. Hang on, Joe. I'm just going to move the map here. So you can see the clouds in southern Canada. I mean, they're basically moving from west to east. There's no, we talk about that connection that you want to see from Canada. It's just not happening. And of course, the trough in the west drives all the cold air pretty far south into northern Mexico. And for those of you who don't know, that there's actually, it's fairly mountainous terrain there in northern Mexico. So they do get snow in most winters in that far south. It may seem unusual. It's because it doesn't often make the news. It's not a very highly populated area, but snow is not really as uncommon as you think. But when it's doing it on a on a basis where they're putting up winter storm warnings up for New Mexico and areas almost down to the border there, that's telling you what the jet stream is doing, and it's not good for the eastern part of the United States
Well, not good if you're if
if
you
you're a
want
snow lover.
if you want a snowstorm. It isn't good. But there are not a few people, Joe, on Facebook have been telling you like this is wonderful.
Hmm.
This is probably the nicest winter that they can remember. And those are the ones who don't like the cold and the snow. Although at least we're going to have some shot of frigidity here for a little while at the very end of this week.
Right, right. And the rains over the next 7 days remain substantial in the southern plains, through the middle Mississippi Valley, and even down further south than that into Mississippi and Alabama, 3 to 5 inch rains. We're looking at, now this is, by the way, this is ending Tuesday, February. I'm sorry. This is through Tuesday night. So the rain that you see in the precip that you see up in the Northeast, and also what you're seeing in the Southern Plains, includes not only what's going to be falling today, tonight, and tomorrow, and into Thursday, but also what will probably fall next Tuesday because that's when the next cold front is due. And lesser amounts, of course, as you go through the plains. The Southwest starts to dry out a little bit, and you get more big rains going into the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, just a few years ago, I could recall, people talking about these very same places that are getting walloped with all of this rain. They were begging for rain. They were in drought or severe drought, and the farmers they're hoping for rain. And now all of a sudden the whole thing is flip flopped, and now they're getting too much rain.
Yeah, well, and when you
It
add it all together and divide it by two,
it comes out just perfect, just normal.
perfect, exactly. So here's our surface map tonight. We finally got this. I don't know about you. Um, the last 2 days have been so cloudy and so gloomy. Aside, let's lay just the rain aside because that was part of the equation too. But just the cloudy, gloomy nature of it. I mean, temperatures are in the 40s. If we're going to be above normal, can we at least do it with a little bit of sunshine? That's the thing I object to as far as the winter is personally. If it's at least when it snows in the wintertime, uh, it tends to be a drier pattern. So these weather systems just move in, it snows, it moves out, and then it clears out behind it. It's cold, but at least you got the sun out. Here, when you're talking above normal patterns like this, yeah, your temperatures are warmer than normal, but you've got a ton of moisture around all the time. Either there's a lot of clouds all day long, or you're dealing with rain, and you've got this frontal boundary that's just to our south now, so at least we'll get a little bit of a high to build in and get some improvement, but it's not going to last long.
No, it's not. Tomorrow, for example, we may get a bit of sunshine, but we'll see increasing thickening cloud cover moving in advance of wave number three. That'll be moving in on us tomorrow night with precipitation, probably in the form of snow initially, at least up here. I wouldn't even be surprised if they had a few wet flakes even as far south as New York City, but it's all going to change to rain after a few hours tomorrow night late. And and then we've got another gloomy day on Thursday. We'll have leftover rain or drizzle in the morning, and then maybe a few pokes of sun later Thursday. We're gonna have to wait until Friday and Saturday for a couple of really bright, resplendent, if I may use that term, days. Blue sky, brilliant sunshine, something that we have sorely lacked for a number of days recently. We'll finally clear things out and have a couple of dry, sunny days for Friday and Saturday, albeit it'll also be rather cold.
North of I-90 in New York State, back over in southwestern New York, there'll be some lake effect there. Also in northeastern Ohio, northwest PA. But the general snowfall from this system looks like it to be a 2 to 4, 3 to 6 inch event from the area that we showed you the winter weather advisory up, and then on up through upstate New York, north of I-90, and then through Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. I actually turned on, I just briefly was watching some stuff from the New Hampshire primary, which is tonight, just some stuff that was shot outdoors, and it was nice to see somebody with snow on the ground, and there was a fair amount of it from wherever they were in New Hampshire. Meanwhile, that band of snow, 2 to 4, 3 to 5 inches, back across northern Indiana and Ohio, in through Illinois, 4 for Chicago, 3 for Milwaukee, 3 for Green Bay, 4 for Grand Rapids, 3 for Detroit. Looks like an inch at St. Louis, 4 for Jefferson City in Missouri, and then of course the snow's tailed off a bit, back down through Kansas and West Texas. And now the snowfall accumulation amounts that you're seeing here are additional snows from what already is on the ground. Little coating to a few inches, snaking up route Interstate 25 through Colorado. And then you get to some slightly higher amounts as you move your way into Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And some action in the Cascades. But 17 inches being forecast is pretty much flurries for them. And and that's it as far as the snow goes. I want to just kind of switch this map, Joe. I want to look at the temperatures here for Saturday morning because that really is, this cold shot that's coming down. It's one of those moments where the jet stream connects once this weather system goes by, and you get this cold air to come in, and just as fast as it goes in, it goes out. So if you look at Friday morning, for example, you're looking at double-digit below zero lows in Wisconsin, in Minnesota, North and South Dakota, the eastern part of North and South Dakota, down into Iowa, Chicago, forecast to get down to -1. And then on Saturday, when you go into the east, now you're looking at -2 for Albany, 14 on the digital forecast for New York City, 13 for me, 6 for you. You go north of Albany, like up around Saratoga, -12, Concord in New Hampshire, -7, Montpelier, -12, and then you've got a couple -20. Well, it might be -16 in Caribou and some -25 to -30 lows in northwestern Maine. So that's your cold shot. And then it goes out because by the time we get to Sunday and Monday, we're going to be moderating relatively quickly. Although, Joe, I was looking at Monday because we do actually have a weak cold front that's going to come through Sunday night. I think it might temper the temperatures a little bit. I thought initially we might get up into the 50s, but I'm starting to wonder whether it may just stay mostly in the 40s on Monday.
I originally said, like you, that it would be close to 50 for President's Day. We are agreed now that Monday is President's Day.
Yes, Monday is
Uh,
President's Day.
and yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to see a tempering of the readings. We'll probably see, at least in the lower Hudson Valley, closer to 40 on Monday, which is about normal now for this time of the year. And then we'll bounce back next Tuesday into the middle 40s.
I've got the latest GFS for overnight. This frontal boundary stalling out to our south, so it buys us a dry day on Wednesday, and then you see the next low. Surprise, surprise! It goes west of the Appalachians, so that's why you see the snow being forecast for the areas that are getting it. The low moves to roughly about Cincinnati by Thursday 1 a.m. It's already long changed to rain in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey, southern New England, and then the low winds up somewhere, I don't know, between Scranton and Binghamton, and then it goes east and south of Nova Scotia, and now here comes your next big high that builds on down, and at least we're going to see some sun for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday, and in fact, much of the country is going to be pretty quiet going into the weekend. You start to see a storm moving into the Pacific Northwest on Sunday, but it looks like the rest of the country is pretty quiet. Here's the weak front I'm talking about for Sunday evening. Doesn't have much with it. A little bit of snow action in upstate New York and northern Pennsylvania with that. And then the high builds in for Monday, as you said, Joe. We'll probably, I think we're going to be cooler than what originally was modeled. And then it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat again. Another low to the lakes. More rain come Tuesday into Wednesday. The front is probably going to try to stall, but I don't think it may be successful this time around. It may just keep on going. This is where the GFS has been on and off trying to show something on here with regards to cold and snow for later next week. And I've told everybody that's been looking at that, it hasn't happened a single time in the long range all winter long. Why is it going to happen now? The pattern, there's nothing different uh, uh, today or next week from what the weather pattern has been over the last 5 or 6 weeks. So why should we wind up getting something at a snow event this time around? I just don't think it's going to happen. And it looks going into the long range. Here's something I noticed today. So I'm going to bring up the upper air. I mean, just to show you how sick this pattern is. Okay, so let me bring the upper air in. Now, I have up here hour 2. Let's go hour 2:28, roughly.
Okay.
All right, so at 2:28, we have not one, not two, okay, but we actually have 3 working fire hoses, okay? You've
Wow.
got the fire hose jet that's running across northern Canada around the 2 polar vortices that are trapped way up to the north, okay? You've got a powerhouse fire hose Pacific jet running straight across into the Pacific Northwest. Kind of splits a little bit with this upper low that's off the Southwest. Nonetheless, the straight jet off the Pacific, and of course you've got the unrelenting Atlantic fire hose that just doesn't stop. It just goes on and on and on. Record readings for the Atlantic oscillation, highest positive readings ever observed. We are just also seeing off the wall North Atlantic oscillation readings that are as right off the charts as far as being positive. And the other thing is, Joe, when you rotate this around, I'm going to just look, starting from today, just going to back it up a little bit. But here's the one opportunity that we're seeing a little bit of a Canadian connection that brings down cold air for Friday into Saturday. And then it's back to this trapped flow up in Canada, and it doesn't change. I mean, you go through the next 16 days, you know, it starts to kind of change a little bit toward the end, but it's even more awful because you got a ridge on both coasts and a trough in the middle. So you go from you almost go from bad to worse, if that's even real, because I tend to think that locked up Arctic jet is going to be up there for at least the next 12 or 13 days, and it might even be there through the end of the month and the very beginning of March. You're running out of time.
Yes, the clock is ticking.
Look at this. This is horrid for snow lovers. Anyway, I want to be fair because, like you said, there are people that really are very happy. Yeah, I'm kind of mixed about it because I do. I like snow. I think what I'm missing is the challenge of forecasting it, because if you don't have snow events in front of you, then there's nothing to forecast. It's forecasting snow is always a big challenge around here for us.
It is. But the last time I had to, or I endeavored to make a snow map of sorts, was with the storm that we had that Saturday, January 19th, and that was what? That was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's uh,
What did that produce?
well, you remember that Saturday storm? I think we had. Well, up here, what did I have? I had 2.9 inches.
Right, and I had about the same.
Yeah.
That's my biggest snowfall for the winter.
So far, we have three storms in this immediate area. Could we call that the big three? uh,
Yes.
the
Adam,
biggest
go ahead. I'm sorry.
the biggest storm I had up here so far was like 4 inches or 4.5 inches. That's it. And the grand total so far. I mentioned this last night. I have yet to go into double digits up here. I'm falling just a few tenths of an inch below 10 inches, which is absurd when I think about all the other winters, all the other Februaries, where at this particular point in time, I've usually already logged something like 30 or 40, and in the most extreme cases, like 50 inches. And here I am not even at 10 yet. It's incredible.
It's sick. Oh, here it is. I got to put this up. This is off of Twitter, but let me just open the image up. So we were talking about the Briller Jeopardy question regarding the state of Philadelphia through all of this. Here is a map showing the areas in the United States that have had more snow than Philadelphia. And except for the coastal Carolinas and, of course, obviously Florida, uh, central and South Georgia, central and South Alabama, central South Mississippi, Louisiana, and southeast Texas, the southeastern half of Texas. Everybody else has had more snow this winter than Philadelphia. I'm sorry for the city of brotherly love. I don't know, those few events that we've had, it was kind of interesting how Philadelphia just got kind of skirted out of the snowfall. There was a little in a season where there's a gigantic snow hole, there's actually a snow hole within the snow hole.
Philadelphia, just a stone's throw away to the south and west is Wilmington, Newark, and to the north and east there's Camden, New Jersey. I wonder how much they've had, whether or not they fit into
No,
these.
they had more than Philadelphia.
Really, that's
Yeah. Adam Lowe pointing out yesterday an historic day for the AO, the Atlantic Oscillation Index, hitting a plus 6.34. And the old record was plus 5.91, set back on February 26, 1990. And December of '89, as I remember, was one of the coldest Decembers that we ever had in New York City. Anyway, it was like in the top five. And then January, and February, and March averaged, I think, like 9 degrees above normal for each of those months. So the winter ended very early that particular year. Although I think they do, there were a couple of snow events that occurred, small ones that occurred inside these sort of windows of opportunity that show up.
Oh, and I forgot to mention another sign, usually of springtime where I live up here, is I normally don't hear distinctive bird songs until March. But I heard, this morning, Joe, going down my driveway, a pileated woodpecker, and it has a very distinct sound or caw. And I never hear a pileated woodpecker usually until March or April. And I did like a double take. I said, "Holy mackerel!" Now in mid February, I'm hearing the woodpecker. Pileated woodpecker, by the way, I believe Walter Lantz, who was the guy who created Woody Woodpecker.
Right.
That sound or that woodpecker comes after the pileated woodpecker. Have you ever seen a pileated woodpecker? I know a lot of you probably have seen the downy woodpecker or the hairy woodpecker, little birds like this that are, peck. The pileated woodpecker is about the size of a crow. It is a giant woodpecker, and in this particular case, has a very distinctive sound. And like I said, I don't usually hear
Do
that.
they have a red plumage?
Excuse me?
Do they have a reddish plumage?
A red head.
Red head. We've
Red
got them
head.
down here. We've
Yeah.
got them down here, and they bang on my oak trees all the time. And
But
every
I'm talking about Big Bird, Joe.
these are big. They're big. I've seen them. I
Yeah,
haven't seen them yet, but I have seen them here.
yeah.
But you're saying you heard one this morning. I haven't heard them yet, but I
Yeah.
have seen them here. And they
I was
also
told, I was told by the climatologist at the Mohonk Mountain House, and I tend not to believe him. He may be right, but he claims I did a story about Mohonk and how back in 2013 it was the warmest year on record for them, and they've been keeping continuous weather records at the Mohonk House. It's just to the west of New Paltz since 1896, and he claims that the American robin no longer migrates; that the robin stays up there all year long. Now, I don't really believe that because I've never seen a robin around here in December or January or February. Although, like I said, to hear a pileated woodpecker this morning, I'm beginning to think now, like, hey, because of the warm weather we've had or the lack of any snow, this is going to be this is going to be
usually the robins start coming back here during mid to late February. I have not seen any here yet. Yet,
right, right.
I I did remember. I'm trying to remember what year it was. Maybe it was the year of the Super El Nino, perhaps, where I did see like the occasional robins. There were like a couple strays. It's hard to tell because sometimes that first, that the ones that were born early in the spring before that and reach adulthood don't always make that first migration down when they go down into North Carolina. They stay
Right.
here for the first winter. So it usually I think those are the ones that are still have that speckled belly before it goes solid.
Uh-huh.
Then the next year they're solid, and then they're gone. I have not seen but that was an odd year. I think certainly haven't seen any robins yet. Uh,
And what's good about, and I know, all of you who want snow and wish for snow, I understand. I feel your pain because I was at one time a real fanatic on snowstorms and nor'easters and winter storms. Not quite so now as I was in my younger years. But the one good thing about the lack of any snow, the ticks. I am surrounded. I am in a wooded area, and you're always concerned about Lyme disease and having a tick get on you or whatever. Ticks love it when it snows because they use the snow as an insulator. So when it gets very cold, they just simply dig themselves deep into the snow. Now, take, for example, what's about to happen on Friday. On Friday, it's going to get very, very cold, and there's not going to be anything for the ticks to
To
snuggle
bury
up.
under. So this may actually be a good thing. It might kill them all off.
It might kill, well, I don't know if they're going to kill them all off, but we have a few more episodes or bouts like this between now and, let's say, the end of March with the lack of any snow. This may actually hold down the tick production this year, which is a good thing. So, looking for something good to say about the lack of any snow.
Joseph Tifano waiting for Poland, Maine, expecting to see temperatures between -10 and -15 Friday night. That's correct. That's that cold shot coming in for sure. Just running through some of the chat comments here. Um, I know I was somebody mentioned about um, the NAO, and yeah, the NAO. The NAO of all of those, the North Atlantic Oscillation is the least of your problems here. You don't even have any Arctic air. Okay, you have hardly any cold air that's coming down. So this what's happening this weekend is actually a bit of a fluke. So I'm not really, the NAO doesn't bother me too much if all the other teleconnections are working in your favor. But when you have all of them working against you, this is the outcome. And by the way, I guess one if you want to look at this in a positive way for snow lovers, you could say, well, it can't get any worse than this. All your teleconnections are in the worst position, and that doesn't happen very often. Um,
Timothy Veltman says, by the way, that the pileated woodpeckers have been calling all winter up here. Now, Timothy lives up in the Albany area. Tuft tuft tim titmice are
oh, the
starting
titmice, yeah.
starting to get active now, and the red-winged blackbirds will be here in a couple of weeks.
The titmice, the titmouse likes to, it likes sunflower seeds, and it'll take them and it'll bang them. You'll see him take it to a branch by itself, and it'll bang them down to try to crack it open. Hey, here's something. Johnny Quest reminded me about this, and I noticed this on the models today, Joe, because this was also pretty sick looking. So let me bring up the European. I'm going to bring up the Atlantic surface because we've got this super powerful jet and this super positive NAO, which means you have a ton of low pressure up in the North Atlantic. But to take a look at this on the European, let me get it here. Hang on, I'm gonna bring it up. So I'm gonna bring up the Atlantic view, the North Atlantic, and I'm gonna bring the mean sea level pressure with the normal anomaly, so that so the blues don't get too dark. And you can't really see it on this map. I'll have to go on another shot. I'll have to take it on the hemispheric shot, northern hemisphere. Okay, so here we go on the northern hemispheric map, Joe, on Saturday. Okay, when we're still with this super positive NAO, there is a 930. There's a double low. One low southeast of the southern tip of Greenland, a 935 pressure, and the other south of Iceland, a 926 pressure.
Yes.
I mean, these are
Well, we're talking
category.
about
That's a category 4 and a category 5 hurricane. I mean, in
that would be
terms of the
what, about
pressure,
28.4 or 28.3 inches, something
right?
like that.
And the GFS has one low. It has a 916 low there. A 916 extratropical low sitting east southeast of Reykjavik, Iceland.
Wow,
I'd like to pull up
that's
a sounding from up
crazy.
there, but I don't think I can. I don't think the map soundings go out for that region. Let me take a look on the North Atlantic if I can get a sounding. Okay, so yeah, I actually can pull up a sounding here. Let's see what it's got for winds. Temperature of 31. I hit a point in the southwest corner of Iceland. A temperature of 31 and a east wind at sustained at almost 40 knots. And you go up to about 900 millibars, and the wind is 50, 60. Looks like an 85 knot wind. up at about 900 millibars, and you've got 85 to 90 knot winds all the way up to about 700 coming in from the east. I mean, that's just crazy.
Well, that'll get your plane across the ocean real fast, won't it?
Well, let's look at the upper. Let's look at the 250 the 200 millibar wind. Look at this. Oh my God, it's just crazy. It's insane. You know, the 200 millibar wind, Joe, is anywhere between 140 and 180 knots all the way across the Atlantic, from south of Newfoundland clear over to England. It's a straight shoot. It's a straight line. This is a fire hose. This, folks, is what a fire hose looks like. And I'm looking up a little, higher up than when we usually look at, say, 17, 18,000 feet. So here we're looking at like 25,000 feet and up. Um, that's insane. I mean, that's just crazy. And a 929 low, and then a 919 pressure being indicated there. Those are stupid, ridiculous numbers in my view.
Off the wall, off the
Off
map,
the charts.
off the charts. Yeah.
Completely off the charts. So that's why I feel very, I feel emboldened by making a call here that we may just we I've been somewhat seriously throwing in the towel in the last week and a half, and playing the fat lady singing on the opera that I found on YouTube. But I'm pretty serious about it. It just seems to me like I'm not seeing it. There's nothing there that gives me that much hope for something.
All right. Well, anything else on the chat board here that we might be able to talk about, or
No,
uh,
let's see. I watched a couple of Perry Mason. Oh, I wanted to tell you this. So Thursday, make sure you tune into MeTV for the Flintstones episode, because they're going to show the episode where Fred meets Wilma,
oh,
where Fred is dating Wilma, and they got Wilma. I think
she was a cigarette girl, or
I don't remember. She's in a long ponytail in the
right.
and when she's when they're going back in memories about dating. I don't know what the whole premise of the episode was. I forget. Seen it as a kid, but I haven't seen it in many, many years.
They're
Uh,
talking about when they and also Fred, if I remember correctly, Fred and Barney were bellhops, and Wilma and Betty were cigarette girls at the same hotel or the same resort, and that's where they all bumped into each other. Um, and Fred's mother-in-law is also in it. I guess you could say oh, who played the mother-in-law? She was originally Alice, and then she became the mother-in-law on the Honeymooners. Pert Kelton,
yes,
the Pert Kelton of the Flintstones.
yes, exactly. By the way, we should point out SPC yesterday had an enhanced risk of severe weather for tomorrow for the central Gulf states. They've actually backed off on that. They now they just have a slight risk from Louisiana northeastward into southern Tennessee and into Alabama and Mississippi, and a marginal risk that moves up into southeastern Kentucky. So here's a situation where they're kind of looking at this low and looking at what's coming out and thinking maybe the atmosphere is not quite as dynamic as what we thought a couple of days ago. I mean, given the fact that the low really doesn't develop into a major storm like the one from last week, maybe this time around the severe weather threat from it will be much less.
Right, and Thursday they only have is just a general area of thunderstorms across the southeastern states. There's no probabilistic or less than 5% for all areas. So they're not anticipating a repeat of what we had, about 4 or 5 days ago in the southeast, where there were all kinds of mayhem with thunderstorms and tornadoes and funnel clouds and whatever. But they still are calling for at least a chance for some thunderstorm activity down there on Thursday.
All right, so look, let's call it a night. Let's
Yeah,
save our energy in for the long shot possibility that if we ever get something, that maybe we'll have to do a live stream at 3 o'clock in the morning in order to see it.
and I'll bet you we'll have the same 129 people who are watching.
Oh, as soon as those notifications go off on YouTube, they'll be there.
These are the
So,
people who they go to bed with their phones next to their pillow.
yes. All right. So, everybody have a great night. Thanks for being here as always. If you want more on the long range, Patreon members, if you haven't yet seen it, there is a weather in 10 video for you that talks all about the long range and goes into the whole thing. So jump onto the platform tonight after you're done here and take a look at that. And I'm going to put up a blog post on my weather app in about 15 minutes to update the weather for tonight and tomorrow. So make sure you got the Meteorologist Joe Cioffi weather app, which you can download for free on Google Play or on the App Store.
And what really amazes me about this group, Joe, is I did two short fused updates this afternoon. I did one at 3:30 at on Facebook. And when
Right.
I finished with that and I answered a bunch of questions on the chat board, I said, "All right, guys, I'm going to go moving over to my YouTube channel, Joe Ray Weather on YouTube, which I hope if all of you have not done so, subscribe to that." And I went over to YouTube, and virtually the entire crowd who was on Facebook
Well,
followed
that's
me over. And I didn't say much of anything different on YouTube that I did on Facebook. But you want to talk about a loyal following who goes from one to the
oh
other.
yeah,
There you go.
oh yeah. No, it is amazing whether people really like their stuff, and I think when once upon a time when we were not professionals, we would have been, it was the equivalent of when we would switch from channel 2 to channel 4 to channel 7 to look at all the weather people, and we knew
Right,
exactly what time they were on, and of course in the between the times that they weren't on, we would turn on 1010 winds so we could hear whatever AccuWeather was doing,
right.
and whatever was going on CBS radio. So it's really the same thing. It's just that the platforms are different, but um, we love it nonetheless. So it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow, and probably have the same thing to say, but whatever. Good night, everybody.